I hope we are okay. So we will start, and Edna is praying with us.
Amen.
So I'm still Robert. The name is Seko. It has not changed. The year is changed. So for today, I'd like us to consider one of the gospel books, and I'd like us to get our attention to the book of John. The chapter is chapter 13. So it has 38 verses. I don't know whether time will allow us to read all of them, so that at least we get an idea of whatever it is talking about. Then we will go verse by verse to see what it has for us. I'll read from here, then we will just follow from each and every verse. I'll first read it from verse 1 to the last. Thereafter, we will go into the nitty-gritties of what each and every verse is talking about, and we will see what we can do with that. And yeah, we'll call it a day, or rather, we'll call it a study. So, when we get to the book of John, chapter 13, the verse is 1. Verse 1 says, "Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end." Verse 2, and the supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter said unto him, Not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Thus Jesus said to him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore he said, Ye are not all clean. So after he had washed their feet, and had taken the garment, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done to you? Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to have washed one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither that he sent me greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I have sent receiveth me. And he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting to whom he spake. Now, now there was a leaning on now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of the disciples whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be or whom he spake. He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, he it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, that thou doest, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, by those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the soap, went immediately out, and it was night. Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while I am with you, ye shall seek me. And I said unto the Jews, and as I said unto the Jews, whither I go ye cannot come, so now I say to you, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have loved one to another. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither thou goest? Jesus answered him, whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterward. Peter said unto him, Lord, why can't I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake. Jesus answered him, wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice. You're sleeping. So, I hope we were all following, or rather we were there when I was reading. When we get to the book of John, and the chapter is 13, when we get to verse 1, we are introduced to something. And what key thing do you realize in verse 1? Now, my badness, or rather my goodness, I always do point at people. We are at verse 1, and we all should be there. Or rather, yeah, should be there. What key thing do you realize? We are introduced, right, to something. Something is happening in the book of John 13. And verse 1 is introducing us to more of what is happening in the book of John 13. So what is happening? If nobody talks, I'll obviously point, by the way. Yes, Sabina is talking. Sorry? The feast of Passover. So when we get to verse 1, we notice that there is the feast of Passover. Is it happening in verse 13, or it is about to happen, or it has happened, or it is within that period that it is happening? I'm still on you, Sabina. But Terry is opening her mouth, so she can help you. Verse 13, verse 1. Chapter 13, verse 1, that is still. What did you say again? It is about to happen. It is about to happen. So when we get to verse 1, Sabina is agreeing with us, or rather is telling us that we are introduced to the feast of Passover. We're given and highlight that it is about to happen. That is the feast of Passover. And when we continue, we are going to realize that the book of John 13 has more of a snapshot of what the Last Supper between Christ and his disciples look like. Are we understanding? So, one thing that I would like to take our attention to, because we are in the gospel book and we are still given more of what the dealings of Christ look like when he's down here, I'd like to take our attention to the line of 144 in the history of Christ. And the first waymark is Amos Makori Atanti. Sorry? 4 BC. The second waymark, Ephi. The second waymark, 27. Third waymark, Lena. Third waymark. 31. Well, as per Lena, 31. Fourth waymark, Lena, we will go with you now. 34. You are not with us. So we are looking at the line of 144K in the history of Christ. So the first waymark we've been told by Amos, that is 4 BC. The second waymark we've been told by Ephi, that is 27 AD. What is the third waymark, Lena? You can point somebody to help you. 34. Then the second last waymark, Pam. Sorry? 70. Okay. Last waymark, this side, Azaria. 100. So when we get to the book of John chapter 13, where do we have the feast of Passover in this line? Between which waymark or at which waymark? Mangi, you have your hand up or something? Okay. Nicodemus, are you with us? Please answer my question. Sorry? Sikuski? You don't have the answer. Jeff, please help us. When we come to the book of John chapter 13, where do we have it within this line? Within which dispensation or at which waymark? So it is between 27 to 34, according to this line. Okay. So this is where we have John 13, right? We all agree with Jeff, right? Okay, thank you. So in verse 1 it says, now before the feast of Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And the supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot to betray him. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he has come from God and went to God. So when we come to verse 2 and 3, what do we find in verse 2 and 3? Joshua, that is your name. What is your name? Joseph, sorry. Yes, what do we have in verse 2 and 3? Joseph, we are waiting for you. In the heart of Judas to betray Christ. So in verse 2 and 3, the noticeable aspect, or rather whatever we are introduced to, is the betrayal that is coming towards Christ, right? And it is served by Judas. So I'd like us to notice that down. Verse 4, he rises from supper and laid aside his garment and took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter and said unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do now, what I do, thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. So from verse 4 and verse 4 to 7. Joe. Okay, thank you. So we equally have the bit that the disciples, sorry? Yeah. Are they chronological events? Mm-hmm. Okay. Who has an answer? Are the verses chronological? Ken, yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Verse 3 is what is connected to verse? Yes. Uh-huh.
Then there's another verse here where it's talking also about a soap. Someone who will dish myself with it.
Mm-hmm.
So those verses are connected. Verse 2 is talking about Judas Iscariot, then it is verse somebody betrayed, and the betrayal came after the supper,
Yeah.
according to my knowledge. So I just want to think all this information about story is after the supper.
So when we come to the washing of the feet, and we are told that it is happening after supper. So is that the chronology of how events happen? That is what Rispa is asking.
According to what I'm reading, that's how it is after the supper.
After the supper. Okay. You have something.
I think
Yeah.
verse 1 to verse 3 is a summary of the entire chapter. And then verse 4 now starts enlarging verse 2.
Okay. Yes, Joseph. Okay. So I think when we come from verse 1 way up to verse 3, it gives us more of a larger concept of whatever the book of John 13 looks like. But going forward, you will come to realize that it gives you maybe I don't know whether it follows more of a given chronological order, but you will have some snapshots of whatever is really happening during the Last Supper with the disciples. Are you answered, Rispa?
Yeah,
You're not.
if we say that, as John is saying, I want to please give him a synopsis or a summary, then I think I will.
Okay. Thank you. So, before you ask your question, Joseph did give us the other aspect that we realize at that time, and it is the fact that the disciples don't understand. We realize that the disciples have no understanding of whatever Christ is doing at this way mark. That was verse 7, where it says that Jesus answered and said unto them, what I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Now, quickly, I'd like to equally have more of a line next to this one, and that is more of the line of the priest, because we are dealing with, it is more of a situation between Christ and the disciples, right? So I would like to have more of a line of the priest in the history of Christ still. And we know that the first way mark still is 4 BC, right? The second way mark, Joy, 27 AD. The third way mark, Faith, sorry, 31 AD. And the fourth way mark, Rispa. Yes, Esther. The fourth way mark here. Sorry?
The last is 34.
Carl, the fourth way mark. The fourth way mark again, 31. I have 31 already. Should I do 31 again?
Is it okay? Which
The line of the priest, the line of the priest in the history of Christ. Sorry? The third is the one that is wrong. Okay. The third is Steve, 28. What you're saying to be the first temple cleansing. The fourth, you're helping us with the fourth. Sorry? I'm also asking you. 31. Esther, the last one. Sorry? 34 AD. Sorry? You guys are Pentecost imefanya? Pentecost. When is Pentecost? Pentecost is 31. Sorry? Uh-huh. Okay. So if we were to probably condense whatever we have here, we'd notice that the betrayal that is coming towards Jesus does not happen between 4 BC and 27 AD, right? Does it happen between 27 and 28? But it happens between 28 and the cross. Are we understanding? So in the major line of the 144 in the history of Christ, the placement of John 13 would be in the second dispensation. But then when we condense it to the line of the priest in the history of Christ, it takes us to the to the to the to the third dispensation. Good. We'll continue with verse 8. Peter said unto him, Lord, thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him and said, If I wash thee not, thou hast not part with me. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hand and my head. Jesus said unto him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are not clean, ye are clean, but not all. So from verse 8 to 10, what do we get? Gladys. Umeongea kweli? Bado. Gladys. Sorry? Yeah, more details. Christ and? Uh-huh. What is Christ telling them? If I'm to make it easy for you, what is Christ telling them? In the conversation, what is Christ telling the disciples? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah, up to verse 10. So the first bit you are acknowledging that Christ is saying, if not washed, then not part of me. The second one, I think there are two. Oh, let somebody help you. You've done enough. Amos. Umetulia. So, in as much as we have this, Christ also tells them that not all of them not all are clean. Thank you. Verse 11, it says, "For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, ye are not all clean." So we are given a reason as to why Christ is saying that not all of them are clean, right? So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, "Know ye what I have done to you? Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to have washed one another's feet. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them." So, Effie, tell us what we get between verse 12 and 17. You have your hand up. Okay. Good. Thank you. So, you've told us that Christ is portraying the aspect of humility to his disciples, right? Sabina, tell us more. Still between verse 12 and 17. Sorry? To serve others. Service to others. Uh-huh. You notice any other thing? Good, thank you. So, when we come to verse 18 now, it says, "I speak not of you all." This is repeated, right? Where did we first meet? "I speak not of you all." Rispa, nilikuuliza swali ingine, then you are not around. Is this the first time we are meeting the phrase, "I speak not of you all"? Verse 10. What was verse 10 saying? Not all of them are clean. Okay. So, it says, "I speak not of you all, I know whom I have chosen. But that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me." So, Rispa, I'm still on you. When it says, "I speak not of you all, I know whom I have chosen." And in verse 10, where you've taken us, it says that he that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all. So, is the aspect of cleanliness that we have in verse 10 repeated in verse 18, Rispa? If yes, how?
But I'm not so sure whether to say yes or no. But the concept of verse 10 that they are those who are clean,
Mhm.
and verse 18 they are those who are chosen.
Yeah,
You can easily say those that are clean,
yeah,
they that have been chosen.
chosen. Okay. So when we get to verse 18, it tells us that there is a lot that is called the chosen lot. But then the language of verse 10 says that these are the clean lot. So this is as per verse 18, but this is as per verse 10. We are together, right? Thank you. 19 it says, now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one unto another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, Simon Peter. Therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, he it is to whom I shall give a soap when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the soap, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the soap, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, that thou doest, do quickly. So verse 19 to 27. Biwot was here. Yes, Biwot.
The disciples at this point they don't really know what's happening.
The disciples don't know what is happening. They still have no understanding. Yeah, please continue.
Christ is narrating, trying to reveal the betrayer is apart from God.
Now, just before you go on, we agreed that the disciples do not understand whatever is happening when Christ is saying this, right? But what is happening with the disciples? What is their mode of retaliation in the same verses that we've read? They don't have an understanding, yes. Do they stop there?
I think they are surprised that one among them is going to betray. And it's a surprise because they didn't see that like one of them was going to be betrayed.
Okay, I'm looking for something. Sorry? Uh-huh. They want to know. They want to know whom is going to betray Jesus, right? Okay. So uh, there is the first aspect of them asking why this is being done. I take you to verse 6, Amos. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do now, what I do thou knowest not, but thou shalt know hereafter. So that is the first aspect of them trying to understand whatever Christ is doing. And that is on the aspect of being washed on the feet, right? But then when you come to someone is talking. But when you come to verse 19 onwards, in verse 25, he said, He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? So in the first aspect, in verse 6, I think there is the bit of them trying to understand whatever the feet washing looks like and what it symbolizes or what it means and why it is being done. But when we come to verse 25, there is equally the aspect of them trying to understand who the betrayer is. Are we together, Amos? Okay. Yes.
I'm struggling to understand verses 18. You said that the chosen ones are the clean. But here I want to understand at what point is Satan entering Judas. Is it before the chosen? Because here I'm seeing it is Christ who knows who is going to betray him. And my understanding is that that person is chosen by Christ for the purpose of fulfilling that. So then, after fulfilling that,
Careful.
we see Christ is giving the soul to Judas.
Mhm.
Then Satan entering, struggling to understand what's happening.
Okay. Was Judas chosen by Christ to betray Christ?
To fulfill, yeah.
He was chosen to fulfill. Is that correct? Sorry? When you mama, I don't get what you're saying. Esther, please. It is what the verse? Which verse? Verse 18, Esther. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen. But that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. How does this show that Christ chose Judas to betray him? We are still with you. And verse 26 says, Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a soap when I have dipped it. How does it show, as per what Joseph has said, that Christ chose Judas to betray him?
27, and after they sought, Satan entered the door. Verse 27.
Mhm.
After now, Jesus did the soul.
Yeah.
Satan enters Judas.
Uh-huh. So when the act of giving the soap, is it more of like, when you say chosen, are you implying the chosen when the 12 disciples are being chosen? Or are you implying more of like when the 12 disciples are chosen because I think 11 are chosen, and there is that aspect of how Judas comes into the fold of the 12, right?
I'm not implying anything, I'm just trying to understand. What I'm trying to understand, the act of giving yourself to Judas,
Yes.
is it an aspect of choosing?
It is, I would argue that it is not an aspect of choosing, but it is an aspect of fulfillment of that which was to happen
This was which was to happen through one.
through one, yes.
Yes. And this through one, after being given the substance that it did.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm struggling with. Let me not hold it there.
Yes.
When I look at verse 20, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth me. He receiveth him that sent me. When Judas had thus said, when Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, then that one of you shall betray me. Then verse 22 is saying something. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. The disciples are suspicious of one another. They are asking themselves, who might we be who will betray the Lord? Then it was verse 26. It is, I don't know, it is to whom I shall give a soul when I have dipped it. I think it's referring to Judas. But noting the aspect that he chose Judas to betray him. But it's just clearing the air, the doubt the disciples were having.
Is that of any help, Joseph?
Yes?
Is that of any help? He was answering your question.
I'm getting supporting what you are saying, but not clearing my doubt. Because I'm not seeing the chosen relating to cleanliness. I'm seeing the choosing relating to someone who is going to complete or to fulfill the will of God here.
So when we get to verse 18, and I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen. Maybe let's put a full stop there. You recall, Rispa did take us back to verse 10, and he said that and ye are clean, but not all, right? So we did say that the chosen that is in verse 18 is a perfect equivalent of clean that is in verse 10. You get what I'm saying? So the chosen that is in verse 18 is more of an enlargement of what is in verse 10, but it is not anything that is giving more information on whom is going to betray Christ. You get what I'm saying? The chosen here is the lot of the clean. It is not the lot of the betrayer. Is that fine? Thank you. Good. So verse 29, it says, for some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, but those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the soap, went immediately out, and it was night. Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while I am with you, ye shall seek me, and as I said unto the Jew, whither I go, ye cannot come. So now I say to you, verse 34, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. I'll not go to 36, wait to 38. Yeah?
Sorry to take you back.
Yes.
I went to Desire Pages
Mm-hmm.
to try and really see what was Christ doing. Was he like pointing Judas to fulfill the prophecy or not? But then Desire Pages is trying to paint a picture which is different. So it's saying that when he's saying that the one I'm giving soul is just like identifying this is the person betraying me. But Judas had purposed it in his heart before even supper. When you read
Verse 2.
when you read DS 645 paragraph 1, It says, before the Passover, Judas had met a second time with the priest and the scribes, and had closed the contract to deliver Jesus into their hands. Yet he afterward mingled with the disciples as though innocent of any wrong and interested in the work of preparing for the feast. So if you just continue reading down, you will see the disciples knew nothing of the purpose of Judas. Jesus alone could read his heart, yet he did not expose him. Jesus hungered for his soul. He felt for him such a burden as for Jerusalem when he wept over the great city. His heart was crying, how can I give thee up? The constraining power of what love was felt by Judas. When the Savior's hand was bathing those soiled feet and wiping them with the towel, the heart of Jesus thrilled through and through with the impulse then and there to confess his sin. But he could not humble himself. He hardened his heart against repentance, and the old impulses for the moment put aside and again control him. Judas was now offended at Christ's act in washing the feet of his disciples. If Jesus was so humble himself, he thought, how could he be Israel's king? All hope of worldly honor in a temporal kingdom was destroyed. Judas was satisfied that there was nothing to be gained by following Christ. After seeing him degrade himself as he thought he was confirmed in his purpose to disown him and confess himself he was possessed by a demon, and he resolved to complete the work he had agreed to do in destroying his Lord. So I think there was an act of repentance that was required of him at the foot washing. And when that didn't happen, it's like his chance of salvation completely was him. So that's the point I wanted to say. Not that Christ was giving up, but he was just trying to say, this is the person who is going to do the work.
Yes, Nicodemus.
Because that fast, Christ is speaking from the Psalms 41 verse 9. He's speaking a prophecy because it's directly quoting from Psalms. And in Psalms, it's specifying who that person is. And it's saying they're a friend or a man. And it's saying of their share or something like that. So I think this person is choosing is Judas, but the explanation about the chosen whatever is what is by saying.
So I beg to disagree with that, because when you get to the book of Psalms 40, it is 41:9. Somebody can get there, or we can all get there actually. When we get to the book of Psalms 41:9,
Yeah, my own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, have lifted up his heels against me.
so it says, yeah, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, hath lifted up his heel against me. So when you invite the argument in Psalms 41:9, it is repeated in verse 18, but on the last bit of verse 18. It is not directly tied, or rather more of a further explanation of whom is chosen. When it is talking about the chosen in verse 18, that is the first part of the verse, it is talking about the clean of the Lord, which I would argue out is at the 11. But then when you get to the part where he says, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me, that is more of now a different tone of Psalms 41, verses 9. That is what I understand. Sabina, yes. Sorry, Carl.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So also to go to the previous, we want to understand that first we can read that first.
Yes.
Get the content properly, and also you can read the previous and come at the following. So if you read the verse 17, it says, "If you know these things, happy and if you do them." So then they are the same. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen. Or but so the part there is a contrast of those that has been chosen, which I agree the 11 has been chosen, which we connected as being clean.
Yes.
Then anasema, but the scripture ilikuwa fulfilled, anasema sasa hiyo thing, the one that is going to be fulfilled
Yeah.
is that last of Psalms
41, 9.
which says that he that will eat with me bread.
A familiar friend has lifted his heel up against me. Thank you. Nicodemus, are we together? Do you understand my perspective? Does it make sense to you?
Yes, I kind of think it's all disciples Judas included, but in the this is like I know this is you, but it's like specifically emphasizing because the story follows after it's coming to identify Judas now. So he's still saying I've chosen all of you as 12, but the theme or something that's trying to show is Judas among these 12 in my perspective. So I see like both of them can fit, but the thing that the person is trying to be identified among the 12 is Judas.
So if you take that perspective, it will be conflicting with verse 10, because in verse 10, Rispa did give us the liberty to equate the clean to the chosen. So if you're talking about the 12 being equals to the chosen, it would mean that because we know that among the 12, there is one that is unclean, then it means that the chosen now is more of a mixture of clean and unclean, which would be contrary to what verse 10 says. You get what I'm saying? You understand? Okay, thank you. So, yes, Effie. Yes. So, first bit, if you're asking that on the perspective of verse 18, I would tell you is not chosen as per verse 18 and is also not chosen as per the choosing of disciples. You get what I'm saying? In verse 18, let me make this clear. When we come to verse 18, the chosen that we have here is a synonym for clean, which I would say is a synonym for Christ people, if I'm to say that. Ooh. Christ people. So the chosen here is not the handpicking of the disciples. But even if you get back to the time when the disciples are being chosen, Judas himself was not chosen by Christ. But the 11 of them that are now being considered clean in verse 10 and chosen in verse 18 were chosen again. Judas was called. I don't know. I'm not. Now, what happened? I don't know. It should be Dear Amani. But then there is the bit where White says that after the 11 were chosen, the 11 again, among themselves, I think they rallied for Judas to be among them. So Judas was not chosen by Christ, be it in the context of verse 18 or be it in the context of identifying the disciples. when his ministration is beginning. Are we okay? Edna, are we okay? Then we are okay. It's okay. It's okay. Nobody has that reference. The one that White says that the disciples rallied so that Judas can be part of them. It is somewhere. You guys sound like that is new. If you have your hand up, yes. Mhm.
I mean, if Christ did not want Judas to be amongst the disciples, Judas as well chasing, I refused.
You're using could.
I'm saying the discussing does not, like, at least what I think understand.
Mhm.
Jesus is what Messiah is doing at the Christ went out and sought Judas, but Christ, like, allowed Judas to be amongst the disciples.
Mhm. So your problem is why he allowed him to be?
My problem is why that is not true.
What?
Why that is not Christ. Why they accepted.
Oh.
But I do get, like, I know the approach.
I think it is not choosing based on how the other 11 was done, yeah. Carl, you had something to say previously, or it has slipped.
Maybe just a small point.
Yes,
In the verse 18, I agree with what you're saying.
yes.
When it says, I speak not of you all,
Uh-huh.
I know whom I have chosen. And then it starts the next sentence with but.
Mhm.
When it uses the word but, it implies or it suggests that he's changing direction. So when you look at the grammar also to understand the language,
Yes.
it's telling you when he's speaking of those he's chosen, he's talking of one group, and he says, but
For the scripture to be
for
fulfilled,
the scripture to be fulfilled,
yeah,
there's another story here,
Yes.
separate from the ones who he has chosen.
which is now Psalms 41:9.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even just from the verse itself,
Yes,
you can get what Jesus is saying.
thank you. More clarification to you, Nicodemus. Jeff, you have something?
It was a quote. The quote is,
Oh, you've gotten the quote. Please help us. DA 294.1. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. For the interest of time, I think Edna. Okay. I did read verse 29 to 35. And what I think we can get there is the fact that Christ is saying that there is a new commandment that is giving unto the disciples, right? So there is the aspect of a new commandment. Yeah,
Just to point out
please do.
that even when Christ says that he that I'm gonna give so with the training, still the disciples didn't understand. They thought he was talking
Yeah,
to Judas on a different capacity as a treasurer. So that was just he didn't even think to include them in the
yeah. Thank you. So, in the closing verses, it says that a new commandment is given. And what does this commandment look like? Nani hajaongea? What does this commandment look like? Hiyo ni verse 30, that is verse 34. Next to Amos. What does the commandment look like? To love one another, right? So technically, this is what the book of John 13 is talking about. We have the aspect of betrayal, we have the aspect of the disciples not understanding whatever Christ is talking about, them being washed, and so on and so forth. But then, when we have this line here, it gives us the narrative that the book of John, chapter 13, finds itself in the second dispensation of this history, right? So, but when we come to the fractal line, which is the line of the priest, still in the history of Christ, it tells us that it is not now within this second dispensation where it would find its placement, but it is in the third dispensation where it would find its placement. This then implies that the book of John chapter 13 and whatever nitty-gritties is talked about here can be applicable to both the first dispensation, the second rather, the second dispensation and the third dispensation. The third dispensation. Are we understanding? So, one thing we know that by application, the line of 144 in our history is a perfect equivalent to this one, right? So if the first waymark is then the second advent. So this is a perfect equivalent of this line, and we also know that we have a perfect equivalent of this line in our history, which still starts from 1989, then proceeds to, thirdly, then, and lastly. So, as per John 13, it tells us that within the history, within the second dispensation that we have here, we have the aspects of Christ talking unto his disciples, and Christ is giving a new commandment to the disciples. And this new commandment, one thing that is happening is that they don't have an understanding. There is no proper understanding of what this commandment looks like. But even to that, it is within this dispensation again that betrayal is coming in the way of Christ. Are we understanding? Anybody has a question? A concern? An addition? Because I think our time is up. So maybe. Yeah. Hmm. I did not get your last point. You've given us what the new commandment is. Yes, yes. Hmm. So the new commandment to you is radical feminism. Okay, okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
reason why the disciples doesn't understand
Mhm.
that Christ has identified who is going to betray, they don't even, I think in their mind, they don't have this picture that Christ is going to be killed. And because of what their preconceived opinion or what Christ has come to do, that
Mhm.
has prevented them from seeing the entire picture of what Christ is doing right from devotion. Like they are linked back to identifying who is going to kill. So um, I was saying now when it comes to if we take that aspect of the disciples not understanding because of the preconceived opinions they have,
Yeah.
then when it comes to our history there, we don't understand whatever we are going to make the new commandment out of the entire story. It's because of them our preconceived opinion or our ideologies that we have
Yeah.
that is going to distort our understanding. So actually, it's not a new commandment
Yeah.
because what Christ said is what they were required to do. But to them now it looks it's new because they have crowded themselves with the traditions and those things. So I don't think it's a new person.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Our time is up. Oh, Mongi. Mhm. The enemy within. Wow. Thank you. You have something?
More like a question.
Yeah.
So we drew two lines.
Mhm.
So the line of the priests in the history so the line of the disciples,
Yeah.
call it that, the betrayal is between 28 AD and the cross,
Yeah.
which will be between 2014 and 2019.
Yes.
So basically, it is after. This line is telling us it's
Mhm.
after the Sunday law.
Yeah.
So, but this other line is telling us it's before the Sunday law. Why that difference?
Why the difference? This one says like a new commandment comes. The new commandment comes within this period, and we know that 2014 is a Sunday law. But then on this other line, it tells us it comes before the Sunday law. But in both instances, we recognize that it is talking about a new commandment, right? So I think when we come to the first dispensation, because we more of have two different dispensation now, but they're consecutive, where this is the in the morning you're talking about the second dispensation and the third dispensation, where you said here we have the early rain and here we have the latter rain, right? And one thing that I'm answering you as per your study in the morning. One thing that you acknowledge is that the rain that is being given here and the rain that is being given here is the same, but this is more of an enlarged rain as compared to this one. So if you come to this history, in the second dispensation, this rain is calm, but people don't have a proper understanding of whatever this rain looks like. So it repeats itself, which you're given in another different line, that it comes in the third dispensation again for it to be understood better. You get what I'm saying? Steve? Sasi, we stop, then you answer, you ask in the Q&A. Okay. Please go ahead. Uh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Do I answer now or I answer? It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. I'll answer you during Q&A. Rispa, pray with us so that we close.